Hello, my name is Craig McMenemy. I'm here today to discuss a few facts, but more importantly, I'm here to discuss my perception of the death penalty and its use today. The death penalty is and will always be a point of contention and of debate. For most, the death penalty is something that just streams across the American news, and then America moves on to the next topic. It's almost impossible today with today's technology and smartphones and tablets and other devices to not know what's going on in the world. However, for most, or rather for others, it's not just a tab on the bottom of CNN or a scroll on the bottom of CNN. This is a great debate on what amendments are violated and whether or not the criminal should be or should not be killed for the crime that they committed. The death penalty has been a form of punishment long before the first recorded death penalty punishment. A lot of the times the death penalty was very cruel and often a violent punishment. Some examples include crucifixion, drowning, being buried alive or being deaf, beheading, and hangings. Following history, the British had a great impact on the death penalty process. One of the main impacts that the British had during this time was use of gallows as the most used method of death for the death penalty punishment. Following a great number of death penalty convictions, reforms began to take place. Major reforms changed the way Europe utilized the death penalty. So, for example, some of the reforms included crimes that were considered less severe. The death penalty was not granted, or rather was not received by the criminal that committed the crime. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So similar to Europe, during this time, execution was used for severe crimes, but also included some minor crimes such as burglary. It wasn't until the 1800s that reforms really started to take place and shape how the death penalty is used. Excuse me. It wasn't until Thomas Jefferson who recommended that the death penalty only be used for treason and for murder. However, and unfortunately, the bill was defeated during a legislative vote by a singular vote. Now I say unfortunately because at the time and throughout history, as I mentioned, burglary and other minor crimes, the death penalty was still a punishment. I don't believe in that. Now, many other reforms and debates have taken place throughout the years, but only a certain amount of states within the United States have chosen to abolish the death penalty punishment. Deathpenalty.procon.org lists some of the key pros and cons associated with the death penalty that I'd like to discuss. They include morality, cost, deterrence, and retribution. There are many others, but these are the ones I want to focus on today. Morality. I like what Bruce Finn wrote about morality in his book, Individual Rights and Responsibility, the Death Penalty, but Sparingly. He basically states morality allows people to make the decision between right and wrong. People have the opportunity to make the right decision if they so choose. Now, with that said, I feel the majority of the U.S. population understands that cold-blooded murder and similar criminal acts is punishable by death. Now, if they make the decision to carry out specific crimes such as these, then why should they not receive the punishment, the death penalty as a punishment? They understand what will happen if they go and kill somebody, yet they still go out and kill somebody. Now, the con to morality consists of people arguing that the government should not have the capability nor the determination to decide who gets killed and who doesn't get killed, or rather who lives and dies. I'd also like to point out, sidebar, that discrimination is unavoidable in our world. It has been for a long time, and I feel that discrimination is going to continue. There are many people that have been convicted for crimes that they did not commit. Moving on to cost. Some estimate that each death penalty case costs approximately $2 million. Now that's a large sum of money. However, over time, life without parole option will cost more. On the con side, I did not consider the amount of cost or rather the cost of the amount of experts that would be called in to do their individual assessments of each criminal for each trial, the amount of attorneys it would take, nor any additional trials and their costs that would take place in order to guarantee the proper steps have been taken for the death penalty cases. Moving on to deterrence. I think that most agree that the greatest fear among our population today is death. If governments have the ability to use death as a deterrence to possibly save lives from murderers, then I side with the government every time. Now, on the con side, according to the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, there's no credible evidence that the death penalty deters people from committing crimes. Now, I think that's up for debate. I would also debate that the greatest fear among our population today in the United States is death. Some would consider public speaking the greatest fear. Now, lastly, retribution. Crime disturbs world order. There are those that take advantage of people's lives, peace, liberty, and worldly possessions and goods. Deserved punishment protects the American way from criminals that take it upon themselves to dish out and handle crimes as they see fit. Now, to consider the pro side, or rather the con side, people argue that retribution is just another word for revenge, and the desire for revenge is one of the lowest human emotions that we have. Although most agree it's not, of those that do not agree with retribution, they also stated that it's understandable in certain circumstances or situations, but they still believe that's the wrong way to feel as a human being. Capital punishment in context states that according to the Eighth Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment shall not be inflicted on anybody. Now, in the case of Furman versus Georgia, Furman, Jackson, and Branch, 3 individuals were all convicted of murder and rape. Furman for murder, and the other 2 were convicted for rape. Now, during the appeal process, all cases were overturned due to the judge's interpretation of the Eighth Amendment, which states that cruel and unusual punishment should not be inflicted on anybody. This resulted in multiple states, more specifically 39 states, immediately stopping the death penalty process until laws could be rewritten and repassed at the legislative level. Now, in conclusion, I feel that the death penalty is a necessary evil to be used to rid the world of people that carry out their own form of cruel and unusual punishment. There are many that fight the constitutional rights, but I say to you, what happens if it's your spouse, your daughter, or your son? I do not believe in revenge, but I do believe in justice. Thank you much for your time.